Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Cotton. I am a field specialist in nutrition and health education for the University of Missouri Extension in the Health and Human Sciences Department. I cover Jackson and Clay County here in the Kansas City area and provide different health and nutrition programs in community settings. So today I'm going to be talking about probiotics and nutrition for digestive health. This is an important topic because digestive concerns have been on the rise over the last few decades. About 60 to 70 million Americans are affected by some type of digestive issue. Some of the most common are chronic constipation, GERD, which is also known as gastroesophageal reflux disease or acid reflux for short, and then irritable bowel syndrome or IBS. And there are other digestive issues. We're going to get into a few of those as we go. But many Americans are impacted by this type of thing. And diagnosis can often be difficult. There are many symptoms, and symptoms can be unique to the individual. Many lifestyle factors impact our digestive health, things like diet, the foods that we're eating, physical activity, and stress. In some people, stress slows down digestion, causing bloating, pain, and/or constipation, while in others, it speeds it up, causing diarrhea and frequent trips to the bathroom. Some people lose their appetite completely. So we're going to go over some of those more common digestive issues, starting with that acid reflux or GERD or gastroesophageal reflux. And this is where stomach contents move up into the esophagus. And signs and symptoms are, of course, heartburn, that burning pain or discomfort in the abdomen or chest, and regurgitation of stomach acid. And there are many causes or reasons why someone could be experiencing this. So it could be possible that an individual has a hernia, or it could just be from eating too large of meals, or maybe lying down right after a meal, being overweight or obese, eating too close to bedtime, or even just certain foods people are sensitive to certain foods, and it can cause acid reflux. Things like alcohol, carbonated drinks, or caffeine, smoking, pregnancy, and some medications. So ways that we can control this are to eat smaller meals and quit smoking and avoid those trigger foods or beverages. And these can be hard to pinpoint because, throughout a day, we're eating many different foods, and it can be hard to know which one is upsetting my system. And so this is where a food diary can be really handy. Just keeping a food diary for a few days or as long as it takes for you to kind of narrow down the types of foods that are causing this to occur, that can be helpful. As well as elevating our upper body when sleeping. This can help to keep that acid down where we would like it. And trying not to eat within 2 to 3 hours before lying down. Avoid tight-fitting clothes or belts. Anything that's really squeezing our stomach's going to increase this discomfort. And losing weight if needed. And also discussing medications with our healthcare provider. Next up, we have irritable bowel syndrome. And this is a disorder of the intestines that can cause belly pain, cramping, or bloating, diarrhea, or constipation. And there's really no clear cause, but there are many theories out there, and it could be due to a faulty communication between the brain and the intestinal tract. We do find that it's more common in young women and individuals with panic disorder or other psychological conditions, individuals with a family history of IBS, and individuals with a history of physical or sexual abuse or other psychological trauma. This tends to be more common in those individuals, as well as people with other conditions like depression, migraine headaches, or fibromyalgia. So some signs and symptoms of IBS are stomach cramping, bloating, maybe mucus in the stools, constipation and/or diarrhea, but symptoms vary and come and go. So ways that we can help to control this are to avoid those trigger foods again, exercising regularly, just getting movement in throughout the day, and trying to keep that stress managed in a healthy way. Diets to support our microbiome, and we're going to get into more of how you can do that later in the presentation, as well as medications to manage symptoms. Lactose intolerance is another common digestive issue affecting about 30 to 50 million Americans, and this is a difficulty digesting lactose. We know that some of the risk factors for lactose intolerance are age, and it is more common in African American, Asian, Hispanic, or Native American populations, and individuals who have any type of injury or disorder of the small intestine. So signs and symptoms may be mild, they may be severe, and they may vary. Again, these are reasons why digestive issues are so hard to diagnose. But typically, symptoms occur within 30 minutes to 2 hours after consuming dairy, and individuals usually experience one or more of the following, which are bloating, cramps, diarrhea, painful gas, and nausea. We can control lactose intolerance by taking over-the-counter lactase or just selecting lactose-free dairy options or non-dairy options, and determining our personal tolerance. So some people can get away with having a little dairy, or maybe if they eat it with a full meal, they can have a little bit more. So we all kind of have to figure that out for ourselves through trial and error. Constipation is next, and this is difficulty going to the bathroom or having less frequent bowel movements. And so in order to know if you are constipated, you have to kind of know what your normal is. So that looks different for everybody. Sometimes people's normal is 3 times a day, whereas other people it's 3 times a week. And so if you're finding that you are not at your normal, you may be experiencing constipation. Constipation is a symptom, it's not a disease, and there are many reasons why this can occur. It could be due to poor diet, maybe we haven't been eating as much fiber or getting enough exercise. It could also be a result of ignoring the urge to go. Pregnancy can cause this, as well as travel. Anytime our normal routine is thrown off, constipation is definitely a possibility. Other causes are laxative abuse, medications, presence of other digestive disorders, or neurological disorders. And along with the inability or the difficulty having a bowel movement, we might experience like abdominal bloating, cramps, pain, decreased appetite, or even lethargy. So just kind of not feeling like doing anything, definitely not feeling like ourselves. So tips for controlling this are to get that regular physical activity, taking the walk, getting some movement going. This can really help that digestive system get to work, as well as making sure we are getting plenty of fiber, but don't stop there. You also need good hydration to make sure that fiber can do the job it needs to do in the most pleasant way. So we need plenty of water or hydration to just keep our digestive system moving and working properly. Stress, as we spoke about before, can also have a really big effect on our digestive system. So managing stress in healthy ways. And again, that kind of goes back to exercise is a great way to manage stress in this. So that can be dually powerful. And then maintaining our routine as best we can. And then if we need the use of over-the-counter stool softeners or other medications, you can speak with your healthcare provider about that to get a little bit of extra help. And so the picture here on the screen is helpful to know what sometimes maybe what we need to look for and what issues could be going on. So that's a nice visual there. The final one we're going to talk about today is diverticulitis. These are pouches along the intestinal wall that become inflamed or infected. And this also affects quite a number of people. So about half of all individuals over the age of 40 have diverticulosis, which you can see there at the bottom left picture. And over time, about 20% of the people who have diverticulosis develop diverticulitis, which is just a more extreme version. And it can cause things like alternating diarrhea and constipation, painful cramps or tenderness in the lower stomach area, and chills or fever as well. And so these are pouches, and they can grow larger, they can cause us a lot of discomfort. And the way that we can control this, if this is something we're experiencing, is through the use of antibiotics, liquid or low bulk diet during treatment. Sometimes surgery is necessary, and trying to maintain those good bowel habits. And this all goes back into more of the prevention, which is making sure that we're eating enough fiber daily and getting that good hydration, as well as physical activity and avoiding laxatives and enemas. So we'll kind of end our talk about some of the different digestive disorders, and now we're going to turn to what is the microbiome. The microbiome is also known as, you might hear it called the microbiota or microbes. We're all talking about the same thing. And the way I like to think about it is if you imagine a big city, maybe on the weekend, or like in the morning when people are on their way to work, there's lots going on, cars driving, people walking this way and that way. That's really what our microbiome looks like on a molecular level. There's just a lot going on, a lot of different things. And our microbiome consists of trillions of microorganisms of thousands of different species, including things like fungi, parasites, and viruses. And though this sounds kind of maybe, I don't know, gross, this is a really good thing. The more variety, the more species we have, the better off we are, as this promotes good health. So in a healthy person, all these different types of microbes coexist peacefully. The microbiome plays many important roles in promoting daily operations of the body. The largest number of microorganisms are found in the small and large intestine, but the presence of microorganisms exists all throughout the body. We could find them anywhere. Each person has an entirely unique network of microbiota. Just like our fingerprints are unique to us, so is our microbiota, and this is originally determined by our DNA. So our first exposure to microorganisms occurs when we are infants during delivery. So whether we are born vaginally or cesarean, that's going to affect how our microbiota consists of. How we're fed as infants, if we're breastfed or formula fed, this too is going to affect our microbiota. And then as we grow, environmental exposure, our diet, the types of medications we take, all of this is going to impact that microbiome. And the microbiome contains good and potentially harmful bacteria. And like I said, in a healthy body, those good and bad bacteria coexist without problems, really. But things like infections or illnesses, certain diets we might go on, or the prolonged use of antibiotics or other bacteria-destroying medications, this can cause something called dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is a reduction in the microbial diversity and thus a loss of some of that beneficial bacteria in our gut. Dysbiosis means there's an imbalance of the gut microbiota. So as a result, when this occurs, the body may become more susceptible to disease. Our microbiome is so important that wiping out a large percentage of it, whether this is due to excessive sanitation or the repeated use of antibiotics, it can leave us extremely vulnerable to illness. There's empty real estate available, and so harmful bacteria, also known as pathogens, can move in and wreak havoc. And this is where probiotics may potentially help. Probiotics are live microorganisms that are intended to have health benefits when consumed or applied to the body. Lactobacillus and bifidobacterium are the first to colonize in an infant's gut. And probiotics can be found naturally in foods that contain them. So fermented foods would be a source. And so fermented foods contain mostly lactobacillus because lactic acid is produced in these food items, and lactic acid is a hostile environment for other harmful bacteria. It's important to note that on these types of food manufacturers are not required to list the specific dose in probiotic containing foods. So sometimes that might not be clear if you're searching for probiotics through your diet. You can also get probiotics through the use of supplements, but the FDA does not regulate supplements. So it's important to know that a probiotic supplement may not contain the amounts of bacteria they claim to, or the bacteria may not be living anymore by the time that you get it and consume it. So again, there's pros and cons to each, and we just have to be aware when we're purchasing these. So here is where we can find these naturally occurring probiotics in our diet. And not all versions of these foods contain living probiotic cultures. We want to look for refrigerated versions of fermented foods like sauerkraut and pickles because the shelf-stable varieties have been pasteurized, and this process kills microbes. Shoppers can also scan product labels for words such as live and active cultures. So here in this list, we have kimchi, which is a traditional Korean side dish of salted fermented vegetables. Kombucha, which is a tangy, fizzy fermented tea. It's generally made from green or black tea and flavored with herbs or fruit. Sauerkraut is produced by fermenting cabbage and lactic acid bacteria, but some store-bought versions have been pasteurized. So again, looking for those refrigerated options, you're going to get those probiotics there. Miso is an intensely flavored paste made from fermented barley, rice, or soybeans. Probiotic-filled miso is often used to make a salty soup. Then we have tempeh. It's made from fermented soybeans. It's like a dense, kind of cake-like texture that can be used as a protein source in cooking and easily marinated to take on other flavors, kind of similar to tofu. A little bit different texture, but very similar. Then we have kefir or kefir. This one's said many different ways, but it's a thick, creamy, and tangy-like yogurt. And it has its own strains of probiotic bacteria, plus a few helpful yeast varieties. And I feel like this one is pretty easy to spot in the grocery store, usually over in the dairy area next to the yogurt. We have pickles, but when looking for pickles, again, we want to find those that were naturally fermented so there was no addition of vinegar. If vinegar is used in the pickling process, then this does not promote the growth of probiotics or bacteria. So we want to find pickles that were created in a sea salt and water solution. And again, looking in the refrigerated section for these types of pickles. Some cheeses that have been aged but not heated afterward, Swiss, provolone, Gouda, cheddar are some examples. We do in the US, often cheese goes through a heat process, so you'll have to look at your particular grocery store to see what's available as far as that goes. Now, sometimes people have a question of how often should I eat fermented foods? And there's really no hard rule on this. Just eating a variety of fermented foods within an overall eating pattern is recommended. So looking at the benefits of probiotics, research suggests that probiotics promote the health of the digestive tract lining, helping support immunity, and that they are also important in managing inflammation. So specifically on the screen, you can see some things that research has looked into and found that probiotics can reduce diarrhea that's commonly associated with antibiotic use, as well as improve intestinal regularity, reduce symptoms associated with IBS, and reduce gut inflammation. Probiotics have also been seen to treat and prevent vaginal and urinary infections in women and delay the development of allergies in children. So far, the USDA has, or the FDA, excuse me, has approved no specific health claims for probiotics. Further, the amounts of probiotics that studies have found to be beneficial vary from strain to strain and condition to condition. Thus, I'm saying that more research is needed. Animal and human studies have found that certain bacterial strains may decrease the amount of fat and calories your gut absorbs, promote a healthy balance of gut bacteria, and reduce weight and belly fat. We've also found that there's a strong connection between gut and brain health. The bacteria in your colon digest and ferment fiber into short-chain fatty acids that nourish the gut. Research has shown that these compounds may also benefit the brain and nervous system. A review of 38 studies on animals and humans found that various probiotics helped improve symptoms of anxiety, depression, autism, obsessive compulsive disorder, and poor memory. In other studies, probiotics have been shown to improve overall mood and reduce sadness in healthy individuals and people with chronic fatigue syndrome. Taking probiotic supplements also appears to help people struggling with depression, including those with major depressive disorder. We still don't know which probiotics are helpful and which are not. There are many different strains of bacteria, and it's difficult to know which strains may or may not be at work. The interactions between these bacteria and the host can be different for each individual. So each one of us has a unique composition of intestinal flora. The same probiotics may have different effects on different people. So what works for me might not work the same for you. Even for the conditions that have been studied the most, there are still many more questions than answers. So next we have those prebiotics. Prebiotics are naturally occurring, non-digestible food components that are linked to promoting the growth of healthful bacteria in our gut. So these prebiotics promote bacteria, the good bacteria in our gut. So they're really food for good bacteria. So if we consume probiotics, we really need prebiotics to feed those probiotics and to keep them flourishing. So where do we find prebiotics? These are found in fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, beans, whole grains, basically high fiber foods. And we know that prebiotics may improve digestive health just because of the package that they come in, but they also can potentially enhance calcium absorption as well. All right, so it is important to say that if you aren't already eating these high fiber foods regularly, be sure to add them into your diet gradually to avoid excessive gas and bloating. And don't forget the important part of making sure you're getting plenty of hydration as well to help with this process. So what are the benefits of prebiotics? You are what you eat, right? And so if we're getting healthy, whole foods, lots of fiber, this is going to help us in many ways. It's going to help grow that bacteria, that good bacteria in our gut, but it's also going to help us in many other aspects of our health as well. Prebiotics help that good bacteria thrive. And again, we get many benefits from a high fiber diet. Reduce risk of many chronic diseases, helps lower cholesterol, it gives us a better appetite and weight control, and more regular bowel movements means we have a healthier digestive health. So it's good all around. And sometimes you'll see supplements or different foods at the store, and they combine prebiotics and probiotics, and they often call these functional foods. Just know that this is something that we can do ourselves. So if you took yogurt and topped that with banana slices, you're going to have your probiotics and prebiotics there in that healthy snack. Other ways that we can get more prebiotics in our diet are to cook with garlic and onions. That can be a really good way. Those are filled with those healthy prebiotics. Changing from refined bread or white bread to a whole grain bread. Whole grain bread has 2 to 4 grams of fiber per slice. It is more than refined. And in general, we want to get half of our grains to be whole grain. So looking for whole grain tortillas and pasta and cereals, all of those things. Speaking of cereal, if we can choose cereals that have 5 or more grams of fiber per serving, that's going to be a great way to increase our fiber. Of course, those whole fruits and vegetables and trying to eat the skins, that a lot of the fiber and good nutrients are in the skin, and so that's going to be helpful too. Sprinkling bran in oatmeal, baked goods, spaghetti sauce, ground meat, and casseroles. This is a good way to boost the amount of fiber in those foods. And use peas and beans in main dishes, salads, or side dishes. And again, switching to whole grain here, we have that brown rice instead of white. That's just another example, and whole grain pasta as well. Okay, so some potential limitations that I think it's important to talk about are that while probiotics have been shown to be safe for all but the very sick and immunocompromised in the United States, most probiotics are sold as dietary supplements. These do not undergo the testing and approval process that drugs do, or medications there. Is what I mean there. Manufacturers are responsible for making sure they're safe before they're marketed and that any claims made on the label are true, but there's really no way for us to be certain about the effectiveness of what we're purchasing. So that we just need to be mindful of that, I think, as we are looking into this. Health benefits are strain specific and not all strains are necessarily useful. So many microorganisms listed as probiotics can't survive the passage through our stomach. It's also important to note that most of these beneficial bacteria, even if they survive to reach the intestines, they may just be simply passing through. And research suggests that the strains that are currently used in supplements and added to yogurt do not take up residence in our gut. That doesn't mean they are not helpful, but they likely won't lead to lasting changes in our microbiome. You may want to consult a practitioner familiar with probiotics to discuss your options. And as always, keep your primary care provider informed of any supplements you may be taking. So if you do decide to grab a probiotic supplement next time you're at the store, make sure you let your doctor know and add that to your list of medications. For most people, eating a healthy diet that's high in fiber, with plenty of those fruits and vegetables and whole grains, that's going to provide us with enough prebiotics to help our bodies naturally produce its own probiotics. And so there may not really be a need to have a nutritional supplement, but that's for each of us to decide on our own. If you do decide that you would like to start taking a probiotic supplement, here are some things to look for. Ideally, the supplement will list the full name that includes the genus, species, and then the strain. Many products that you see that contain probiotics list only the genus and species on the package, but if we can get all three names, that's a good sign. Some probiotic supplements contain less than half the amount of organisms claimed on the label. Probiotics are typically measured in colony-forming units, or CFUs, is what you'll see a lot, CFUs. Generally, higher doses have been found to produce the best results in most studies. However, some probiotics may be effective at dosages of 1 to 2 billion CFUs per day, while others may require at least 20 billion CFUs to achieve the desired results. So it can vary. Taking extremely high doses has not been found to be harmful. One study gave participants up to 1.8 trillion CFUs per day, and there weren't negative results, but this can be very expensive, and it doesn't appear to provide any additional benefits. If we look for those seals of approval, which you see some examples there on the slide, these provide assurance that the product was properly manufactured, that it contains the ingredients listed on the label, and that it does not contain harmful levels of contaminants. So you can look for those as well as you're shopping for supplements. So finally, I just want to end with some tips for overall digestive health. Good diet is really key. So we want to think about the kinds of foods that we're putting into our body are obviously going to have a big impact on our digestive system. The goal is to get 25 to 35 grams of fiber every day. And we can do this by eating lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and making sure we're getting plenty of those, and try to limit our processed meats, refined grains, added sugars, and alcohol. And again, really important, drink your water, stay hydrated. We need that to keep these processes working in the body. And then be physically active every day. Whatever kind of movement you like to do, make sure you're getting that in regularly. That's super helpful to keep processes working, and work toward or maintain a healthy weight. And just know your body. So going back to those trigger foods, trying to identify those and using that food diary to help with that process is going to be a good idea. So with that, I just want to leave my contact information. Again, my name is Melissa Cotton. I'm with the University of Missouri Extension. My email is listed on the slide. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.